So welcome back to my channel. I know I'm late as shit with these recaps, but I have a job, I'm in class, so I just got behind, and I actually went back and forth like whether or not I was going to go back and do a recap of the previous episodes, and I said, you know what, I got some time, let me get caught up before this new week coming up, new episode, so let's get into it before my battery dies. Okay, so The Passage, season 1, episode 2, You Owe Me a Unicorn. Okay, so, you know, they're still leaving the police station, the high-speed chase. He's injured, but he's trying to pray it off that he's okay because he obviously doesn't want her to be worried. So they get away, and they only get so far because he was losing a lot of blood, so he ends up passing out. And the only thing she could think to do was to call his wife. She's obviously his wife's Dr. Lila, and so she kind of talked her through it to try to bring him back, to wake him up. And then of course they talked for a while, and he actually hung up on her because he knew that they would, could possibly trace the call. He ends up flipping out for a minute because he doesn't want her to get involved, the ex-wife or wife, I don't know, to get involved. And so he kind of flipped out a little bit, and I'm throwing the phone out, and of course Amy's outside the car like, oh shit, what the hell? So he ends up, getting back in the car. They drive as far as they can. And they end up finding the school where the kids, I guess they were going on a field trip. And so he walks up with her and like, oh, I'm so sorry, played the whole I'm a single dad. And of course she had to be extra like, yeah, my mom ran off with the 27-year-old. He has a YouTube channel. He's like, oh, they don't need to know all the details. And so of course these two women are like, oh my God, that's great. The single dad trying to do it all on his own. We understand, we understand what you're going through. That was basically the whole thing, right? So played on that whole thing. And they was like, okay, they didn't ask her name, nothing. They just said, oh, she can get on the bus. So she never getting on the damn school bus. He goes to the back of the school bus and jumps on. And of course the kids turn around looking like, who's this old man that got on this bus sitting next to this girl? He did look kind of like the creepy old man for a minute, but whatever. So of course everybody has a cell phone, so the kid turns around, he's taking a picture of him, and he ends up taking his phone. So back at the facility, I cannot think of this guy's name. It's like a kind of wimpy kind of guy. He's arriving to work, and this other guy who's just an asshole. He's like banging on the cages, just doing shit to antagonize these people. And he's like, why are you doing that? They hate that, don't do that. And he was like, you know what, I'm responsible for Babcock, which is the woman who still looks normal. He said, and you're responsible for Dr. Fanning. So basically, mind your business. So he's like bamming on her cage and just a complete and total asshole, right? So the next thing we see is, I guess I'm not even sure. It doesn't show when they get off the bus, but eventually he ends up getting another car, stealing another car. And you see the agents, they arrive at the school, and they're talking to the kid who had his phone taken. And of course the kid's like, I don't know, it was my sister's phone. He says, so what's the number? I don't know my mother's number. It's in my sister's phone. And so he basically said, just go back over there. And then you basically ask him to ask the people to get the school records, to get the mom's number and the whole thing. So okay, so so Jonas and Carter. So he's in there. Jonas is now he's in one of the examining rooms examining Carter. They had put a chip in his neck, and he was like, well, why did you have to do that? And he's like, oh, so we can monitor your vitals. And they talked for a minute, and Carter started asking questions like, is this legit? Is this on the up and up? And then he thought about it. He said, no, this can't be on the up and up. Basically, Carter knows that this is some kind of clandestine kind of organization that's running these tests. But I mean, he figured it was tantamount to a death sentence anyway, because he was already on death row. So, it was like I don't know if he wanted to say slid down the razor blade into an alcohol river, that whole kind of thing. I don't know. He just figured like he was just in a no-win situation. So then he talked, and he asked the question as Dr. Jonas was walking out, like, is this what you thought things were going to be? And then you get the backstory of what prompted Dr. Jonas to pursue this endeavor of finding this cure. You find out that his wife was diagnosed, at the time his wife was diagnosed with early onset Alzheimer's. And that's kind of what sparked his interest in trying to find this cure-all, this medicine that can cure all ills. And so, but he needed help. And so that's when Dr. Fanning comes in. And, they talked, and he was talking, this is when they were talking about planning the expedition to the cave. And of course, initially Fanning he didn't want to get involved. And then he found out that the Dr. Jonas' wife Liz had early onset Alzheimer's. And he actually got kind of emotional. Like, I'm like, what did he have? Are we going to find out that he had feelings for Liz? I don't know what that whole thing was, but he was like, why didn't you tell me sooner? And I'm a neurologist, so why wouldn't you tell me? And, the whole thing. And so, Dr. Jonas, when he turned around and asked Carter, like, well, no, this isn't what I thought how things were going to be. And so he walks out. So Brad and Amy, they're driving, and she starts she's asking him, like, what was that? He said, don't you watch TV? Like, they can track the phones. And then, they called his wife, who he's like, they're probably tracking her phone. And they got into it, and she was like, you said that you wouldn't leave me. And she felt that him almost dying on her, obviously, was, she got really upset and kind of emotional. And he was, they kind of, obviously they squashed it, but he's like, well, where are we going? And, he went to his friend's house. And so his friend is Lacey. And I'm like, okay, so I like the fact that they're introducing, they have a lot of, people of color, especially black, characters. So you have Amy, you have Dr. Sykes, you have, Carter, the prisoner, and you have Lacey. And she's kind of eccentric. She's like they were in the military. You find out they were in the military together, and she was his trainer or something to that effect. And so she takes him in, obviously, and they start talking. You can see she kind of forms an attachment to the little girl, and he starts obviously telling her what was going on. So we flash back now. They've found Carter they've reached up to a certain point where they ditched the car. He's actually found the phone. No, actually he didn't ditch the car at that point. He found the phone and he threw out the window. Actually, yeah, he did ditch the car. He did ditch the first car. If I'm getting this correct. See, this is why I like to review stuff while I'm watching it, because I just be forgetting shit. And it's like 2 o'clock in the morning, so I'm like, okay. So they found a smashed up phone. So he guessed that they were on their way to Canada. My dang TV turned on. So now they're in hot pursuit. So so Jonas and Dr. Jonas and Dr. Jonas and Dr. Sykes, I believe, they're sitting around talking. And Dr. Jonas is now like, I don't even, he's having second thoughts. He don't even want to do this. They really want her to Dr. Sykes to let the girl go. And she's like, well, we can't. I'm thinking after, this is the bigger picture, and, we really need this. And they are hell-bent on this one particular child. And it's like, okay. And then we have the flashback of them looking at the formula, and then of course they're like, oh, this is a huge breakthrough. Dr. Fanning is like, this is a huge breakthrough, but we're going to need to have backing, and you need to find an investor, the whole thing. And Dr. Jonas didn't want things to get out of hand. He didn't want to lose control of the situation. Of course, Dr. Fanning was like, no, it's fine. I'll figure out the funding. So you have Amy and Lacey, and then they're sitting around talking, and that's when you find out that how Brad and Lacey know each other. And around this time, this is when Lila shows up. So now he's like, okay, what are you doing? He was like, well, you only know one friend in Wisconsin. She knew it was Lacey, so she showed up. And Lacey has given him an update, like she's arranged for the car to be taken away, ditched. She's arranged transport for them to get to Canada. She's going to arrange for them to get fake passports, the whole thing. So Lacey is like, that bitch that has all the connects, right? And so she's basically explaining to him, like, no matter where you go, they're going to find you. And she was like, I think that they're more interested in getting you than they are getting Amy, because obviously he's worked for this organization, and so he has the inside scoop, and he knows everything and everything about everything. Well, I don't know if he knows everything, but he knows a lot of the people involved. And so she was like, you're going to have to tell your story. And he was like, I'm not interested in being a whistleblower. I just want to get her out of here and, you know, make sure that she's okay. And so Lacey decided, just tell me everything that you know and I'll tell the story. And so he starts rattling off the name of these death row inmates that have gone through this program. So we flash to Carter. Carter is you see him running on this treadmill, and he's like, I don't know if he feels like he has more endurance, he has more stamina, whatever, but he's all, you know, giddy and excited because he's pushing it. And next you know, he hears music playing, and so he walks over and opens the door and walks, and next you know, he's in a bar. So he walks up, and then he sees Shauna Babcock, which is one of the patients at the facility. And so they sit down and start talking, and she was like, well, you're not here for me. And that's when Dr. Fanning shows up. He, you know, appears as the bartender. And so they start talking, and Carter is like, you know what, I'm not feeling this whole thing. I'm just going to go ahead and go. And he was like, basically, before you go, I want you to give a message to Dr. Fanning. He was basically telling Carter not to trust Dr. Fanning. So I'm like, okay, what happened? What's going on? Okay, so he ends up, then you realize that obviously it's a dream. So again, they have the ability to get into the minds of people. So get my notes here. Let me hurry up because I have a feeling my badge is gonna cut off any minute. Okay. So he ends up, so he whispers something in his ear, like he wants him to give him a message to, like I said, give a message to Dr. Jonas, and of course he wakes up. So then you have Brad and Lila, they're sitting around talking, and she's, you know, examining him and saying, you know, trying to stitch him up and get him together to make sure he doesn't have any infections. And they start talking about their daughter, and he goes into how guilty he feels and how he couldn't save her. And then he saw Amy, and he couldn't do it. And, you know, all the guilt that he feels, and he felt like, you know, he was sorry for, you know, shutting her, Lila out. And, it's, you know, they had a much needed, a long overdue conversation. And then Brad, you know, he walks over to where the room Amy was in. And so he was like, you just want to knock in the morning. Why are you still up? And of course she's having trouble sleeping, obviously of the events of the day, you know, being shot at and the whole thing. So they start talking, and she starts asking him questions, and she was like, are you an assassin? And then she asked him if he believed in God, and in the end he ends up sitting down next to her and reading her story until she fell asleep. It was a very sweet and touching moment. So you find next, you know, you flash to the guy that Lacey paid to take Brad's car away. Carter is down there, and he's questioning the guy, like, what are you doing with this car? Were you taking it? Who told you to take it? And of course the guy initially was like, you know, I don't really know. It's, you know, the calls go through dispatch, and of course they weren't buying it. So they in the end he ends up giving up Lacey. Basically, like, she gives me a couple of dollars to, you know, do odd things for her and the whole thing. So he's telling Carter where Lacey lived. And so then we flash back. There's another flashback of Fanning, Jonas, and his wife Liz, and he's bringing the information to Dr. Jonas and Liz that the Department of Defense is interested in funding the project. And of course, initially he was like, no, I don't want to do that. And the wife, of course, was like, no, I don't want you to do this, because either you're going to fail or you're going to cross an ethical line that you spend a lifetime avoiding. And so she just basically doesn't want him to do it. She feels like Alzheimer's is going to do what it does, you know. And she was like, and you're not going to have me to talk to anymore because I'm not going to be here. And she doesn't mean physically, but she was like, I'm not going to be here. And so she walks off. Like, she just doesn't want him to even go down that rabbit hole. But obviously we see that he did. And So we have Jonas and Dr. Jonas and Carter. So they're walking, they're passing each other. He had just, Carter had just left from, I'm assuming, doing some work, his workout. And so Jonas was, asked Dr. Jonas to ask him how he was doing. He said it's good. And he told him that he's been having some weird dreams. And Dr. Jonas asked him about the dreams. He said, yeah, it was this guy that was there. He said that he was a friend of yours, Dr. Fanning. And of course that piqued his interest because at this point, Carter hasn't met Fanning. He doesn't know, he hasn't seen the other people. And so he's like, well, what did he say? He said he said that you don't have to worry about changing the world. You already have. You just don't know how yet. And, they, parted ways and continued on wherever they were going. And so, so you flash back to, so you flash back to the guys. It's another day, and he's still tormenting these daggone patients. And the other guy was like, just leave them alone. Why are you? He's just a goddamn bully. So he ends up grabbing the guy, the smaller guy, and slamming him into Babcock's, the bars of her cell. And he ends up taking his badge and throwing it in there, like torturing the guy, like, okay, now you gotta go and he needs to go get his badge. So he walks over, of course he's scared to death. He ends up getting his badge out. She didn't even try to attack him. So the other guy was like, oh, I didn't think you had it in you. So he walks over to the bars again, and he's tormenting her. And then eventually she changes and she grabs his ass and bites the fuck out of him. And now he's dead. Now remember, the whole time Babcock has looked normal. She's looked like herself. And so now you've seen this transformation of her, where now she's a goddamn vampire. So he's now dead on the floor, and of course the small guy's like, oh my god, he's now about to have a freaking nervous breakdown. It was a whole scene. So you flash back to Brad and Lacey and Amy. They're all packing their stuff up. Lacey had already arranged for a boat to take them to Canada, the whole thing. But of course, Carter shows up with this whole team of people. They start, shoot, bang, bang. It's a whole gunfight. Lacey ends up getting shot and killed. Brad eventually, because at this point they're outnumbered. It's him, Lila, and Amy in the house. And so he ends up giving up, thinking, okay, he really didn't have an option. And so he walks out, and then eventually, I guess the guy was like, he was like, if they don't come out, then he's going to shoot Brad and the whole thing. And so eventually Amy came out, and so Brad turns around, like, what are you doing? Why did you do that? And she was like, well, I told you, you promised that you would never leave me, and so I promised that I would never leave you. And so now the organization has both Amy and Brad in custody. So that's basically how this episode ends. Hopefully I got through that quickly enough. I'm going to end this here before my camera shuts off, and I will see you guys in the next episode.